Hi, and welcome to episode 30 of M1 Yarns and the Michigan Makers Podcast, a knitting podcast coming to you today from Metro Detroit, Michigan, where it is a, a fairly mild mid-March day. I'm Jamie. I'm the dyer behind m1yarns.com. You can find me on Instagram, Ravelry, Facebook, everywhere at M1 Yarns. And let's see what we have for you today. I have a whole pile of stuff to talk about. It has been a lot going on. Let's start with what I'm wearing. Of course, that seems like the logical place to begin a knitting podcast. I am wearing my somewhat recently finished Rock Your Bodysuit, and this is featuring Life in the Long Grass, and it's like 5 or 6 colors, kind of faded, and the pattern is by Mezzo Makes, and I love it. I have gotten a lot of use out of this bodysuit the past few weeks, and I would definitely knit it again. If you're curious about all the details, I have a whole finished object review video, which I'll link to. I want to say that corner. I always get it wrong. Anyway, we'll say one of the corners. Let's see. I also recently finished my Gallant by Cadre. That I'm sure I'm pronouncing all of the above wrong, so I apologize. And I also have a finished object video on that. I'll insert a photo and link to the video so you can find all the details on both of those fun projects. But the Gallant was made with handspun yarn that I had purchased from my friend Amanda, who is MelantedBohoBae on Instagram. And after I bought the 2 skeins that I use in this sweater, I messaged her. She was having a shop update where one of her listings was going to be like custom hand spun stuff. And I said, I have scraps, like basically, you know, those like mini balls of yarn that you have at the end of the projects. Well, I had a whole jar full of them, and they needed to go. They needed to become something. They needed new life breathed into them. My hair is out of control today, so don't mind that. And so I said, can you spin this into some sort of cool art yarn? And she said, yeah. So I sent her quite a bit of yarn, and she sent me not 1, not 2, look how gorgeous these are, but 3 skeins of handspun. And these are scraps from probably, I don't know how many projects, at least, I would say at least 15. I'd have to figure it out, but that's a lot of work. And she really did a beautiful job. Like this one, you might be able to see the sparkle that she kind of splashed in there. Maybe not. It's hard to pick up on camera. But she really divided my scraps into cohesive, you know, like color themes. Like this one's really earthy. This one's kind of on the pink and purple spectrum. And dyed a bat to make it all cohesive and give it a great base. And these are just so squishy. So I'm thinking maybe like a chunky cardigan, doing the same kind of striping I did in my Gallant, where like every other row is handspun and then the opposite row is like just a smooth bulky yarn, something very neutral to kind of give it a balance. But I'm excited for these. These are amazing. So if you haven't checked out Amanda, definitely do so. She is just an amazing, talented maker of all sorts of wonderful things. And so that was a fun stash acquisition. Also on the needles is my sorrel, but I'm going to talk about that on another episode. So let's put a pin in that. Something I've been working on that's not knitting, but knitting related, is I am the featured dyer for April's Sleeping Bear Yarn Club from Wool and Honey, which is a local yarn shop in Cedar, Michigan, which is in the northern Lower Peninsula. And I've been working on dyeing up all the yarn for that. And this is the colorway I created for the yarn club. It's called Freshwater Jewels. And it's on like a mousy brownish gray base, like a tan gray base. And then features, you know, some like turquoise, brick red, green grass tones, some, just a whole lot of shades smashed in there. And the inspiration for this colorway, I'll insert the photo. It's by a talented photographer who lives in that area. And when they sent me the photo, I said, oh, I have such a vision of a colorway. So today is the 15th. I'm going to try to release this video this weekend. Which will give you only about 2 or 3 days to sign up for the club, which you can do so directly through Wool and Honey. I will link their info in the down bar. But this was a really fun collaboration. So I've been working on dyeing that up. And yeah. So I've had a few cast-ons this week, and I normally don't like having more than 3 projects on the needles because I begin to really feel overwhelmed. My OCD just kind of starts crashing, and it takes away from the joy. But I have been feeling that need for like the variety of a sock, a sweater, maybe another sweater, something else. And I think I talked about this last time, but when I finished my Polaroid sweater recently, I had enough yarn in the mini skeins to do what I thought maybe would be like some striped socks. But then I got brainstorming on the podcast and thought it'd be really fun to take a section of the colorwork motif from that sweater and put it on the top of a sock. And so that's what I did. I cast these on the other day, and I did 1 colorwork chart, which I think there's like 4 or 6. I can't remember. I want to say 4. I just chose one that I thought best reflected the 5 colors and was something that would just kind of work well on a sock. And so I'm just doing a basic vanilla sock. I cast on 56 because I have a very small foot, and did 2 inches of 1x1 ribbing, which I prefer for socks. Then I did the colorway motif, which really only took like 1 evening. And now I'm just knitting the leg. And I will probably do one of the colors, maybe the blue, since they are like the framework lines here. I'll do that as a contrast heel. I really love the Fish Lips Kiss heel method, so I'll probably do that. This is a colorwork sweater. I'll insert the photo actually of the sweater so you kind of get a feel for what I'm talking about if you didn't see it on a previous episode. But it is designed by Craftling, and I loved knitting this sweater so much. It's a kit in the shop, and you get 5 mini skeins with these colors, and then you get this like slate gray black for the main color. And yeah, I was excited to have leftover so I could do coordinating socks for my sweater. So that has actually been a really nice palette cleanser. And I am fully now committed to the concept of always having socks on the needles because they're so portable. The Makealong, the Stash Bust Makealong 2022, which I'll insert here, is coming to an end. By the time this airs, which will probably be the 19th of March. That is the deadline. If you're watching this on the 19th and you are knitting something with stash yarn, please post to Instagram today and using that hashtag, and it'll enter you in the Makealong for a prize. I also have a Ravelry group for the podcast. If you just search M1 Yarns in the group section of Ravelry, it should pop up too. Because I know not everyone's on Instagram, and then not everyone can use Ravelry, so I thought having both would be really good. Anyway, since that Makealong is ending, I thought, let's do another Makealong. Everyone's been really enjoying the community aspect of doing a Makealong. So I was brainstorming what would be fun. You know, we're heading into spring. Spring and summer knits are so different for me, especially living here in Michigan, than my winter and fall knits. So for me, I really enjoy tanks and tees, and I thought, let me see what's in my queue and what's inspiring and what kind of makes sense for a Makealong. And I thought, let's just do a tank and tee Makealong, where you can knit or crochet any tank or short sleeve, I would say like elbow up top, and it'll run March 20th to June 21st, which is the first day of spring to the last day of spring or first day of summer, one of those. And I thought a great hashtag for posting, I'm looking at my notes, Tee off spring Makealong. So I'll insert it here. So if you use that hashtag on Instagram, same concept. Post your project photos using that hashtag for a chance to win a prize, and or use the Ravelry group, which I'll start a new thread. Hopefully I'll do that today. And you can post in there too. So again, any tank or tee will qualify. And yeah, thanks for joining the Makealongs. So with that, I decided for the Makealong, I'm going to knit Jessie May's Ripple Crop Top Worsted. This has been in my queue for quite some time. It was also on my Make 9 of patterns that I really wanted to make this year. And I'm making good progress on that Make 9. I'm going to insert a photo here to kind of illustrate my progress so far. But one of the patterns on that Make 9, I'm going somewhere with this, so just roll with me. One of the projects in that Make 9 was the City Limits by Tanis Lavalley. And I had intended, I think I've talked about this before on the podcast, I'd intended on using some yarn that I have previously dyed. This is on a yak merino silk base, and it's got obviously like those gold tones and some like dark, they're almost like a purpley gray black tones. I absolutely love this colorway. I've thought about bringing it back. I don't know. Let me know your thoughts. I wanted to pair it with some of my Surrey Silk Street yarn, which is a Surrey alpaca silk base. This, I believe, is my latte colorway, and I thought they would pair nicely together. But when I cast on and had been working through the project, what I did not really anticipate was that it really kind of drowns out the gold and black purpley speckles in that yarn. It's showing up better on camera than in real life, but I just didn't love it. I felt like I love the two colorways individually, just not together. And to be honest, I was not enjoying this pattern. I don't know what it was. It was like we had raglan increases and there were pearls on the outsides, and it was just, it it wasn't working for my brain space. So last night I'm sitting there knitting it, and I thought, if it's not bringing me joy, why am I working on this? So I thought about it, and I said I can either set this aside for a while, put it in timeout, or I can just make something different. And because I didn't really like the yarn combination together, I thought, time to move on. So I left that here on the needle so I could show you. But where did it go? Shoot. Oh, here it is. I swatched using just the yak yarn, held doubled. This bag is a hot mess, so please excuse me. I held the yarn doubled. I've only done like a half a swatch so far, so, but you get the gist. I swatched a 3x3 swatch on the size needle recommended for Jessie May's Ripple Crop Top Worsted. And I thought this would actually be a really nice tee. So I think I'm getting gauge so far, but I'm going to remeasure when I get a little further. So the Surrey will be repurposed at some point, I'm sure. And so my, what I'm going to knit for this Makealong, of course I'm not eligible to win a prize, is the Ripple Crop Top Worsted. And I have seen so many cute project photos of this tee. I don't think it on the hanger does it any justice. I've seen it on all sorts of shapes and sizes, and it always looks good. So I'm really excited for that. So if you want to knit that, great. If you have another pattern that you're thinking of making, a tank or a tee, comment below and let me know what you plan to make, because I'm always looking for great summer patterns. So I'm really excited to be using that yarn because that is stash yarn for me and it needs to become something. Another stash acquisition that occurred in the last few weeks. I was scrolling on Instagram and I follow Cece's Wool. She is an amazing shepherdess and yarn dyer, and she does it all. She's really phenomenal and just a lovely person. I think I mentioned her before on here. I was looking at one of her posts on Instagram, and she had mentioned that in her shop she just added some of this hand spun yarn. This is actually, no, it's hand dyed, but I believe it's machine plied. That's what it is. It's one of those, I believe, dyed in the wool situations. I could be completely wrong. But this is by Feederbrook Farm. This is their Entropy DK. It's 100% blue-faced Leicester wool. In this colorway, both skeins. They look a little different, but you know how you get something different with each one. This colorway is called Theta. And I just love the oranges and the browns and the purpley blues. This is just totally my jam. So I ordered these two, and I'm thinking about holding it with this blue that I have left over from a sweater I knit for my husband. And it looks really cool together, doesn't it? Initially, I thought about making, what's it called? I'll insert it here because I can't remember for the life of me what the pattern is called. But I had seen this on another podcast, really loved the design. And then I came back to it and I looked at it again and I thought, I don't know if that's going to look great on me. I don't know. Then I thought about the new pattern by Andrea Mowry, which is, again, I can't remember the name of it. I'll insert it here. I thought that would be fun. And then the other day I was looking again on Ravelry and I was thinking that the, what's it called? was Andrea Mowry's 2019 Rhinebeck Sweater. Words are escaping me today. I'll insert it, but I thought that would be cute too. So I have a few different ideas. I'll insert photos of each if I have not already while blabbering on. But comment below, please, and let me know which you think would look best with these yarns together. So the blue would be the base, and then obviously these two would be the contrast. I think that would look really nice. Let me know your thoughts. So that was a fun stash acquisition, which I don't feel guilty about because I've been knitting pretty prolifically lately. Let's see. I've been getting great comments from folks who have enjoyed that I've started mentioning what audiobooks I'm listening to. And over the last couple weeks, I've listened to 3 worth mentioning. Emily Giffin is a, how do you describe it? I know it's been called chick lit before. So I was an English major in college, and when I graduated, I just wanted some light reading material to kind of, you know, get my fix of reading, but nothing too heavy like I was reading in college. And around that time, I got into Emily Giffin's works. And one of her latest books is called All We Ever Wanted. It was okay. For me, audiobooks, a big part of it is the narrator's voice. And it was a little annoying because the narrator was trying to impersonate a Tennessee accent. And it just wasn't coming off great. And then the storyline wasn't... It was a little irritating. But overall, in the end, the book was fine. I would rate it like a 7. So if you like chick lit or whatever you want to call it, it's worth checking out. Then I listened to Tara Westover's Educated, and I mentioned this to someone the other day, and they had heard of it. And it's an interesting story about a girl. It's a memoir. She was raised by a, like, off-the-grid family in the mountains of Idaho, and she was homeschooled, and I use that very loosely because she didn't really have much of an education. But she ended up getting into BYU and went on to, like, really expand her education and learn about the world that had really escaped her. I mean, she was so sheltered. And I am one totally for that education is key. And for me, my college education was really a big part of framing who I am and how I think of the world. And I think it gave me a thirst for knowledge. And so she talks a lot about that and how she went on to become a PhD, to earn her PhD, I should say. That was really interesting, but it also touched on a lot of the abuse. Her father was bipolar or schizophrenic. I'm not sure which. He wasn't really formally diagnosed, and she was kind of learning about these diseases in a class and kind of self-diagnosed him, or, you know, thought she could kind of put him into a framework of that. And that a lot of that explained a lot of the abuse that was going on in her home. And that was really sad to hear. So that part of the book was, you know, a little bit difficult. But then the third book, which I've just been flying through, the audiobook, is 28 Summers by Elin Hildebrand. I haven't read one of her books in years and forgot how much I love her writing. This audiobook has a phenomenal narrator, which just, in my opinion, totally helps. And the storyline is great. It's this couple who is having this affair, but they only get together one weekend a year for like decades. And just right off the bat, the storyline grabs you. It's it's enough serious stuff that like it feels meaningful, but it's light enough that you don't feel, you know, you don't always want like a heavy storyline. So those have been my audiobooks the last few weeks since the last episode, so check them out. Last but not least, I thought it would be fun, maybe each episode, maybe every other episode, to do like an Ask Me a Question segment. I try to be kind of organized on this podcast, but inevitably, like this one, it's kind of all over the place. There's stash acquisitions, there's finished objects, there's new cast-ons. So we keep it, you know, funky and fresh around here. That being said, I recently posted to Instagram that I thought it would be fun to do like a little Ask Me Anything. And I thought this would be great to do like 1 or 2 questions every episode or every other episode. So if you have a question you'd like to ask me, please comment below and perhaps I'll be able to include it on the next episode. For this one, I got a few questions that I'm going to include. If I didn't answer your question, it might show up in a future episode, but someone asked me the number of projects that I use my own hand-dyed yarn for, and the answer to that is usually the vast majority. I really do like to feature my own hand-dyed yarn. This is not, and I think I've shown a few other projects today. For me right now, I'm in a like stash busting mode. I needed to make space because there's a lot of my own hand-dyed I'd like to use, but you know, space is at a premium, so I had to clear some stuff out. But I really do prefer to knit mostly with my own hand-dyed yarn so that I can show how colorways look and project ideas and that sort of thing. I really love the bases in my shop. I have very sensitive skin, and so if it's not soft and lovely to me, I'm just not going to dye it. I just can't do unenjoyable. Yeah, that's just me. What patterns have you made multiple times? The ranunculus I've made twice. I've thought about making it again. The, I've made something else twice. That's a really good question. I don't know. If I can think of anything, I'll check my Ravelry queue. If there's anything besides my ranunculus, I will put it right here. But I generally like to keep things fresh and try new projects, new patterns each project. And then our last question, somebody asked, who are some of your go-to designers? And for me, definitely Jessie Mae Martinson's patterns are like at the top of my list. I've made so many of hers. I've test knit for her. I just find her patterns super informative, super well written, and very much my style aesthetic. So that would be one. I've only knit one of Knit Love Wools, but I have numerous of her patterns. Is that a phrase? Numerous of? Several of? Let's go with that. I have several of her patterns in my Ravelry library that I do intend to get to. So I would consider her a go-to, and I really love Tina Say Knits patterns. I've made a couple of hers, and I think she's definitely, you know, she is a local designer to me, and I think her talent in pattern writing is phenomenal. So yeah, those would be some of my go-tos, and I'm always keeping my eye out for someone new and exciting. So thank you to everyone who asked me questions for this episode. With that, I think I have pretty much covered it. I hope you all are doing well, and I hope to bring you another episode very soon. If you are a returning viewer, thank you for returning. And if you are a new viewer, please consider hitting the subscribe and notification bell, as I'm trying to put out videos every week or two, whether that's a podcast episode like this or a finished object review, depending on how fast I'm whipping through my projects. But yeah, I am so happy you joined me for a chat today, and I hope you have a great day.